Christ figure in the back. See that? That's Salvador Dali. This is all Orion.
Can I ask a question?
But
is the significance of Orion, why is it so important? It's pretty, it's got things in it.
yeah,
Anything else in there that you know?
there's a lot of Well, Orion is the sector where Sirius is, right? Although Sirius really officially belongs to the dogs, the two, Canis Major and Canis Minor, are deacons of this fella, Gemini. But Orion is one of the deacons here. Auriga, Orion and Eridanus, the river, the Jordan River, which goes from here to here. The Jordan River. So that's why you've got to be baptised in the head. Remember I said to you before that the Holy Land is in your body? It's all there. Everything. When you go checking the stars, I better mute that. When you go checking the stars upstairs, you work out where they are, what part of this body they are, and you'll see, when you look at Leo, for instance, you can see a heart. Leo's a heart. It's the shape of a heart. Look at it and you'll see. And it is, Leo is always in the centre, in the heart. That's where the sun rules. Because the heart is like a pump, like that Anu that you saw before. It's like that, and it's the sun rules in Leo. It's the heart. It's in the middle. There it is. It's the heart. This chakra here, and or actually, it's this chakra here, but it's a little bit. These 7 chakras are in the wrong spot, in my opinion. They should go. This should go down here, and that one needs to be around about here. But anyway, it doesn't matter. That's not so important. But that's where the sun is, you see. And this is why, again, remember before we said we learnt that the fixed cross is coming overhead. The galactic alignment is all about these cardinal points finally migrating back to this cross, you see. Finally. And it's been migrating for 24,000 years. And now finally in 2013, we're going to be in the fixed cross rather than the mutable of all this duality that's been going on. The cardinal points have been going through these dualistic, you know, these... And the mutable signs, Marcus Manilius, the astrologer to Caesar Augustus, he always looked at the mutable signs and he said, just look at them. He said, look where they are. You see, the season starts here, generates the spring with the blossom and the lamb. That's what the blossom is. You know when you see all those beautiful blossom trees in the field, they look like little white lambs, don't they? Well, that's it. That's spring. It happens here. When impregnation occurs, Easter happens here because the sun is finally resurrected. You see, Jesus is resurrected in Easter because it has to go over this. Check it out. The 21st of March is coming up, right? Guess when Easter is going to be? After the 21st of March. On the first full moon after the 21st of March. And the Catholics like to place that on a Sunday. Easter Sunday. But it's all got to, Easter's got to do with this. When the sun finally conquers the forces of winter and it exalts, because Aries is the sign of the exaltation of the sun in astrology, it all makes sense. Well then the Jews go and celebrate the Passover because the sun has passed over into the Lamb. And Jason, who has his ship in Cancer, Argo, he's been looking for the golden fleece. We all are. Everybody wants the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world because the Lamb is in here. It's the brain. We want the sun up here. And we want it to be in Aries and the spring because the spring is the sign of forgiveness of the winter and then brings us back foods. So it's the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of winter. But also the lamb, there's another lamb, as I said, Orion is a lamb, and Orion is near the pineal gland and the Orion Nebula, and all of those things are secreting the milk and the honey. The milk comes from the pituitary gland and the honey comes from the pineal gland. This is the land flowing of milk and honey. And Eridanus is there. The Eridanus flows from Rigel, the star, the bottom star in Orion, that flows from his foot all the way over here to Aquarius. So this is where the baptism happens in the Eridanus, the Jordanus. It's in the sky. But you see, spring starts here and then it gets fixed in April, you know, the bull. Bang, you know. the bull is sitting there in the middle of spring to give you that earthy spring essence and condition. And then guess what happens here? Spring is not recognisable anymore. It changes. It mutates into something else. Then it hits there. It hits that solstice, and then summer comes. And clearly spring is clearly different to summer. But it's the mutable signs that change the seasons. That's where the duality happens. The season goes in two directions and becomes something else.
I don't get it because we're in the southern hemisphere and it's not spring and summer.
It's the other way around, I know. You just have to always take it from the northern hemisphere.
Really?
Yeah, it applies to both hemispheres. But always think that you're in the northern hemisphere. I know it gets confusing for us guys down here. And especially when it's hard to explain how to find the signs of the zodiac to someone who doesn't know them from a bar of soap. So you guys in the southern hemisphere, if you want to find the signs of the zodiac, it's easy. First of all, you've got to find north and point your head, well, east, west, okay. Do that. Get out and just face north. If you're in the northern hemisphere, face south, and you'll see in the east, the east will be to your left, and you'll see Aries coming up, followed by Taurus, followed by Gemini, and they'll go around, and you can watch them, and they set in the west over there. But we see it like this. East is at the right, and so you'll see tonight when you go out, you'll see Virgo, Leo and Virgo coming up here. Aries is over here. So Pisces and Aries, no, Aries will be over here. Orion is over here now. Gemini, yeah, well this is exactly what's there tonight. Right now, if I took you outside, you would see this. Aries over there, setting in the west, going down head first. And then you'd see Virgo coming up over in the east. Right? So you've got to face north in the southern hemisphere because the equator is 30 or 35 degrees latitude north. And of course the sun will be going directly over the equator because the equator of the Earth is what, when you project that out to the skies, that's what the ecliptic is. The equator of the Earth. That's why in the scriptures, in the Gospels, they call it the earth. You see, when the Good Samaritan is walking on the earth and Jesus is walking on the earth, that's just clever language. It's poetry. To disguise that from the people who think that he was literally walking on the earth. The earth is the extension of the equator, which is called the ecliptic, up there. So the sun is always walking on the earth. You see how we get confused? Which brings me to the second part, which I gather we'll do another hour. How did we get from astrotheology, which is the origin of every single philosophical religious science that you've ever encountered in your life? Whether it's the teachings of Plato, whether it's the teachings of the Catholic Church, whether it's Aristotle or Viracocha of the American Indians, whoever it is, whatever name they want to put to it, it'll always be the sun. It's the sun. The sun is the vital life giver, the sustainer. All of your bodies are sustained by it. If it disappears, poof, you go to nothing. What will happen is your atoms just dissolve and go into the ether, back again. He's got to be there. It's got to be there. That electric focal point has to be there. It's electric. And it is the life giver. The photons that come from the sun produce all of these effects, together with the planets and their refractions, you know, the light that they receive. Because when you look up and see Jupiter, he hasn't got his own light. He's a gas giant, but he's reflecting the light of the sun, like the moon is. So they're reflectors, you know, and they're doing their bit as they go around, and they never meet. In 4 million, I think it's 4,320,000 years, the planets never go back to 0 point where they are all in the same position in one sign for 4 million years. So they're doing different patterns, like snowflakes. There's never one alike. There's never, these seven rulers are never in the same place. They're always doing something different. And Marcus Manilius says, from these different positions of the orbs, the wanderers, we get every different kind of human being that has ever lived. You're different. If you've got a twin brother, you'll find that you're different to him. Same, similar, but different. There's a lot of factors as to why that is, you see. So how did we get from knowing all this, from a period when there was much more consciousness? Remember I said to you that I would say, see, the period of Amun, which the Egyptians called the period of Amun, has been the dark age here, when, remember these signs are all in the northern plane of the Milky Way galactic plane, so these are in the north. When the sun finally goes down here, there's a fall that happens, and it's the Copper Age and the Iron Age. Let me just read to you out of Thomas H. Burgoyne's book about this. Human suffering, page 85 of The Light of Egypt. He explains how we got into this mess. I think this is a good place to start, right? And then we'll discuss what the world looks like now. He was writing in 1889, okay? Bear that in mind. 1889. It's 120 years ago. Human suffering is the result of innumerable laws which in their action and reaction produce discord at certain intervals in the scale of human development. This is where suffering comes from. Remember, everything is cyclical. So what goes up must come down. We're in the down. Simple as that. We've chosen to incarnate at this time, knowing full well that it's the Iron Age or the end of the Iron Age, and that there's a lot of stuff that's wrong out there. Okay? It's simply just the cycle that we're in. When you know that, you're relieved. Because when you go to church, they tell you it's because of the devil. Ooh, God. So, you know, there's always some enemy that they paint. It's not, it's just nature. It's just a cycle. Sure, there are creatures, both visible and invisible, that have chosen to be evil because they're undeveloped in their goodness, just as we have been. You take a look at your lives, all of you, every one of you. Have you been saints? Perfect? Any one of you? Okay? Good. Let's follow this man. Messiah! I always think of Brian, you know, he's just go away, please, Messiah. Innumerable laws, which in their action and reaction produces discord at certain intervals in the scale of human development. For all practical purposes, they may be classed under two general heads as primary and secondary. The primary cause is that of racial evolution. What's going on is a racial evolution, all right? So the whole race is being brought into the heart chakra. When the autumnal equinox finally comes out of Virgo and hits Leo, we're going into the heart as a race. There's the heart, Virgo is the belly, before that was Libra, the kidneys, and before that was Scorpio, the generative, the testes and the ovaries. Okay? So for 2,000 years we were here in this chakra, solar plexus. We're getting out of there. When Leo comes, pop, as a race, we should be ready to go into the heart chakra. When you do that, you're saved. That's what salvation's called, because it's Jesus.
That's what some people are calling ascension.
Yep. And then automatically you go straight. Once you pierce that, you sort of, as you do good work, you go all the way up, you see. But the heart chakra, you see, always see Jesus, he's pointing upstairs and he's always pointing to his heart on his chest. What's this red heart doing on Jesus' chest every time you Google an image of the Sacred Heart, Jesus? Well, he's telling you, that's where I live. That's me. And I'm also up there, the tribe I'm Leo, of the tribe of Judah. The scepter shall not depart from this sign. The scepter is the rulership. This is where we're coming. After 2012, we're in Leo. That's the scepter, that's the rulership. Leo rules. The sun. And that's why the Sphinx has been waiting there for 24,000 years. It's just waiting with a woman's with a woman's face. The Sphinx is composed of these two signs, you see. The Virgin, she adorns the face with all the beautiful, hair and everything like that, but the body's of a lion. Whenever you see mixed animals in any mythology, they're mixed from here, you see. What's a mentor? Well, it's men, tor, and you'll see that it looks like a man and a bull, a mentor. What's a satyr? Well, that's... what's the fish god? Or Dagon? Well, that's Aquarius and the fish. Mermaids. It's a mixture of these two. It's always a mixture of the cusp. It's the cusp of two signs. Right? So there's a mentor lives here, right here. So let's continue on, because I get distracted. There's a lot of commentary that needs to be filled in these pages, so forgive me for that. But so each round and each race of the round requires different external conditions in order to evolve its chief attributes. For each round, the race becomes the special means by which a certain one of the soul's attributes is rounded out, as it is termed. Let us illustrate. The first or primal race were those of the Golden Age. They were a purely ethereal race of beings and cannot be strictly classified with what we know of humanity, nor can they be said to have been really incarnated in gross matter at all. That would be your Lemuria Atlantis legends, okay? The penetration of those Golden Age creatures, humanity at that time, was not penetrating deeply into matter. We are the ones that have just engrossed ourselves. This is the bottom place where spirit, that divine spirit, can come, right here, in this age which we call the Dark Age, the Iron Age. But when we were in the Golden Age, we were much more ethereal and less dimension, less of this stuff. We didn't penetrate so much in the gross. Okay, so they were a purely ethereal race of beings. Okay, for this reason, their penetrative power was very small, hence, though highly spiritual. They were correspondingly simple. They lived an ideal life amid semi-spiritual surroundings. That's your Adam and Eve. Naked, walking around with God in the garden as the mist and the breeze in the cool part of the day, talking to God. They didn't have to, then all of a sudden when they ate the fruit, right? This is all symbolical language, it's not literal. But when they ate the fruit, all of a sudden they're covering their parts and they're, ooh, where's God? Oh, God's in the garden. And God comes up and says, Adam, Eve, where are you? Oh, we're hiding, God, we heard your voice. Why are you hiding? You see, that's the fall. That's this consciousness. When we go from the Golden Age, that ethereal age where we were innocent and pure and good and everything was accessible, the Akashic records, and we knew everything, unconditioned consciousness. Now we've fallen, man. We're down to about 10% of consciousness, what we are capable of. You know that. You've got an inkling of that, surely. You know how much more powerful you are than what you are, exercising now. There's more to come, much more. And as we remember it, and we remember. What does remember mean? Well, putting members back together again. The members that we have to put together again to remember are out there. And we've got to put them together, pretty much like entangled particles. Every atom has a particle that's lost somewhere in the universe, and they're vibrating together in resonance. You move this particle of an atom over here, turn it the other way, and they find that another 1 trillion miles away is turning, and they know it. And all of your atoms have entangled particles lost all over the place. That's how explosive. Yeah, man, you've got parts of your soulmate that are in the Orion Nebula, you've got parts that are in Scorpio, you're all over the place. And those little vibrations, those particles that follow the atoms around everywhere, the entangled particles, in other words, particles that should be in that atom that are somewhere out there because of what they call this, the Big Bang. But it's not about the Big Bang, but it's about the explosive electricity of the universe. As it explodes, it shatters these atoms and the particles go all over the place. So when you eat carrots and potatoes and everything like that, that's atoms, right? So you're actually remembering when you eat, right? You're putting food, you're putting some atoms that potentially have some of those lost entangled particles, and you're remembering in that sense. But we're also remembering in that the consciousness is coming together. Why? Because the sun now is bringing us to the... See, when the Bible says that the Lord brings us to green pastures, and in the valley of deep shadow the Lord never leaves us. This is the valley of deep shadow. Or the age of Pisces going backwards. The valley of deep shadow is here. But the Lord Jesus will always bring us down into the valley and up again into the mountains. So he'll always bring us to different parts of that wave, to the glory and to the bottom, to the pits. And it's cyclical. And this is how we round out our qualities. Like gold. You can't just get gold, just pick it up and get it. Sometimes you've got to tear it out of the rocks. You've got to cook that stuff and put it in the furnace, and then all the beautiful gold comes to the top and you scoop it up, right? Or you take all the rubbish. There's, what do they call that? The scum, isn't it? And you take that off and then you get the gold. Gold has to be purified, doesn't it? It has to be sometimes to get it out of the rock. Well, that's what we are. Simple as that. And we have to go through that purging. Purging comes from pir, which is fire. And that's the fire. That fire. Because as we go up, ether, dodecahedron, fire, tetrahedron, air, octahedron, water, icosahedron, earth, hexahedron. And this is the descent and the ascent, up and down. Right? These are the 4 rivers of the Garden of Eden. They are the 4 rivers: fire, air, earth and water. Yod, he, va, he. Alright, so we got to the Golden Age. What happens in the Silver Age? For this reason, their penetrative... Okay, so I've read that. The second race, that of the Silver Age, penetrated deeper into matter, and their golden forefathers than their golden forefathers. And their bodies consequently became more dense. That's the Silver Age. Toward the termination of this race and the beginning of the Third, or Copper Age, the equator of our racial arc was reached in the descending scale. So let's go like this then, shall we? Just to make some sense of this this expression. He's telling us that when we came out of the Silver Age, we actually were at the equator. So let's say we've got gold here and silver and the Bronze Age and then the Iron Age. Okay? So this is the equator. So the descent here, this was all good. This race was ethereal. This one was a little bit denser. Then when we hit the equator, because we've come from good, these guys still benefit from that good. But on the way up, where we've been, that was the Grecian period. Now this is Rome, Pisces, the Iron Age. We've hit rock bottom. We're on the way up again. We're out of here. We're touching on this now, right here. When we get through here, back here to the equator again, in our racial rounding out of the cycles of necessity, then he's going to explain, then this equator is not so happy as when we were going down. This is very sad because we've come from the bad. Here we've come from the good. All right? Now that's going to be explained. So I just thought I'd draw that up for you so you'll understand the next portion, because this is very powerful. This explains where all the trouble happened. And you'll see when the Copper Age or the Bronze Age, because copper and tin make bronze, right? So they call it, sometimes they'll refer to it as the Copper Age, other times they'll say it's the Bronze Age. So the Third or Copper Age, the equator of our racial arc was reached in the descending scale. Here it was that the first murmurings of a mental storm began to manifest themselves. Take note. This is where the mental murmurings began to manifest themselves, and all this trauma. And look around and all the people that are traumatised. Why are they traumatised? Why does brother hate brother? Why is everyone so greedy? They want 6 properties. 5 is not enough. Keep up with the Joneses. They kill you to get up the corporate ladder. I wonder how many people Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton killed to get to the top. Have you seen the videos kicking around on YouTube? Some say they've murdered hundreds of people to get to the top. They want to get to the top, man. And when they get to the top, what's there? Then they get to kill Colonel Gaddafi and laugh about it, you know. Oh, we've killed Colonel Gaddafi, that's great. Oh, we killed us. You know. What? This is where it began. This is where it all started happening. You see, there was no discord here, slightly a bit here, but this was when the trouble happened. So if you can understand this, you don't get lost. Now get this, this is really powerful. When our Earth reaches the equatorial points of the year, storms and tempests abound. Oh, sorry, I missed a bit. I'll go back. Mental storm began to manifest themselves. Emigrations and partings took place between what had previously been a united people, and consequently separate national interests began to evolve. We're talking 5,000 or 6,000 years ago, okay? That's when the bull, we're talking about here, is when it really started happening, the Copper Age sort of. But the bull, Egypt, dynastic Egypt. Right here is where the 18th dynasty of Egypt happened. That was probably, you know, one of the most corrupt periods. And then Rome was sort of founded here in 750 years BC. But then the empire started here when the age of Pisces began. Pinned to the date of Caesar Augustus, not Jesus Christ. It's all about Caesar Augustus, the first god to be ruled. His father, or adoptive father, Julius Caesar, JC, that's the first JC. Julius Caesar means Jesus Christ. The whole myth comes from Rome, the lot of it. They have invented all of the fictions, and I'm going to show you how they've done it, and how we are entangled in that mess, and how we get out of it after I read this. With the copper race, a still further descent took place, and a still greater increase of self-interest was evolved. From the national was evolved that of the family. So rather than being family-oriented and everything like that, nations began. Kings ascended thrones, and sacerdotal systems were formulated. What's sacerdotal systems? Priestly. The sacerdotal class is the priestly class. So he's already just explained here the political, the priestly, and the kingly class. They turn up here. Egypt, Greece, Assyria, Babylon, Medo-Persia, all of this. See, we tend to think that it's been around like this fictional system, and Rome and rulership and paying taxes and money has been around forever. It's natural. No, it's not. It's all part of this crap that happens when we lose our consciousness. And the strong began to assert their greater force, and the weak gradually sank into subjection. A still further descent, and we came to a fourth race, the bottom rung of the cyclic ladder, and fittingly known as the Iron Age. This was the turning point of the 7 races, wherein the soul attains its greatest penetrating power. Spirit can descend no lower. Kings and their priestly counsellors became true despots, and the masses and helpless and oppressed. Next comes a higher evolution. Hallelujah. He's talking 120 years ago. Next, he says, after this age of Pisces comes a higher evolution. The 5th race, beginning at the end of the 4th, reaches up to the equinoctial line of the mental arc in the ascending. That's the 5th race. In the ascending scale, and consequently another stormy period commences. All is strife and turmoil. It is the struggle of the oppressed against the oppressor. It is not the gentle mental storm of the silver equinox, because the spiritual period of light had preceded that era. So he's saying it's not this descent at this point because the spiritual light that preceded it, it's the way up because darkness preceded it. It's going to be tough. We're in the tough waters. We're in this toughness now, coming out of it. But a storm of war and bloodshed, of a fierce democracy battling for the rights divine of man against usurped authority. It is thus because the Iron Age of oppression has preceded it. We are at the present day passing this fearful equinoctial period. And that was 110 years ago. Imagine now. We're starting to get in the clear woods, get out of the woods. The fifth race is coming to a close, and already forerunners of the sixth race are among the people, aiding in the spread of glorious truth.
You're one of them, Santa.
Well, hopefully, you all are, you see. That's why we're here. We're not, you know, we've left our warm homes and, you know, Fox and all those sports channels and lifestyle channels. You can watch those. What's his name? Anthony Bourdain. He'll tell you how to cook a steak and how to get, you know, and all that lovely entanglement stuff. You know what I mean? They paint the. Oh yeah. Fox is full of, you know. Come and see. I don't know, some famous sportsman's house and see how much ivory and gold and shit he's got around his house, while 2 billion of our brothers are actually starving to death. To death. Not just hungry, they're starving to death because of this imbalance, you see. And what he said here, usurped authority. No wonder then that the signs of the times are so significant, and that a real interest in mental and spiritual science is rapidly reawakening within the minds of the masses. I recommend you read that book, it's phenomenal. But so he's explained that kings, politicians and priests turn up here and then they disappear. They have to. Okay? But what the controllers have done since this time, I mean, they foresaw this guy, Hermes warned about what would happen in the Dark Ages, and he said the sciences will be neglected, the temples will be neglected, they'll forget about the gods. The gods are these are the gods. Jupiter, Zeus, and they're not, you know, gods like we imagine. They're fourth, fifth dimensional, because planets are creatures. Mother Earth is one of these gods, Gaia. It's a dodecahedron, and it's a soul, it's a being with chakras, 7 of them, just like we have. They all have. Everything's got animus, soul in it. You see? And this is what the churches are denying. Because if we can't see that, then we're not connected to it. We don't see the interrelatedness of everything, and we see the fragmentation and the compartmentalisation. You know, that's how Rome does things. Everyone's compartmentalised. You know, they educate people to be a specialist in one field, and they know nothing about anything else. Rather than educating people holistically, to learn a little bit about everything, a little bit about the stars, a little bit about astrology and the sciences and everything like that. So what they've done is they've co-opted pre-existing pure natural systems. That's how they've done it. Simple as that. Let's have an example. Big Pharma. What does Big Pharma do, right? They go down to the Amazon and they, you know, speak to some of the tribes there, and they say, oh, you mix this plant with that plant and that plant, and you can cure this, can you? Oh, great. All right. Well, let's can you share that with us? And so what they do is they grab that recipe and they go back to, you know, back to their laboratories, and they mix these herbs and everything and then they register it and they patent it, right? And once it's patented, and they call it something like Prozac or some sort of shit, and they give it to people, and people take it. Or whatever, you know, I don't know. You know, some of the names, they must laugh when they make these names, and they say people are actually going to take these chemicals and it's going to treat them. You see, Big Pharma treats, you know, they tell you, take chemotherapy, and it's the best treatment we have. What about a cure? They're not in the business of curing. They're in the business of treating.
No repeat business in cures.
Oh, that's right.
And most cancer specialists never take that themselves when they get it.
Any man-made chemical is a poison. Simple as that. Nature preserves the natural vibration of the herbs, and that's what heals. I'm going to leave some websites and some names for you to check out on these wonderful subjects. But check out, have you seen Dr. Sebi? Anyone know of Dr. Sebi? This African-American guy from Honduras, he's cured every disease known to man. Every one of them. In fact, when he went to America and started talking about curing AIDS, the FDA took him to court, Supreme Court. And they said, you need to bring a specimen of each one of the diseases that you've said you've cured, and you need to bring a specimen for each one. And there were 9. He boasted in his flyers and advertising material that he cured these 9 diseases. So he brought 79 people into court, and he walked out of there a free man. He's still practicing. And he has cured every disease known to man. And he's got proof, walking proof. You don't need any papers. And he keeps saying, what are they doing all this research in their laboratories? What's the research for? Dumb bastards. You know, you can cure people with minerals. He says, forget about protein, enzymes and vitines. That's all a myth. It's minerals that we need, and minerals come from the sun, from solar gazing, and herbs. Herbs are alkaline. Anything below 7, 1, 7, 14, you got acidic and alkaline. This is what we need to be eating, according to him, and none of this stuff. Meat is in here. It's acidic. But here, and you've got a lot of, he explains that there are a lot of herbs that are hybridised, like peppermint. You drink your peppermint tea, you're just drinking this stuff. Chamomile, comfrey, aloe vera. So hybrids. All your grains except for spelt. Spelt is the only alkaline grain. I won't touch anything else apart from spelt. Won't touch it. But check this guy out, please. Do yourselves a favour there. Because what it exposes is that we need to be talking about curing. Not about treating. You see, this is what they do. And the same thing goes with the religions. What they've done is they've gotten this, Jesus and his 12 apostles, right? And they've doctored the books to make them literal. And when it's literal, it's like what Big Pharma does. It just treats you. You go into church of a Sunday, you think you're getting saved. No, you're not getting cured. Because in Spanish, a priest is a cura. A cura. It's a cura. You go to the priest for the cura. Cure. In fact, they still call them cures in English, Old English, I believe. The curers.
Yeah, curates.
No, curates. Yeah. You ain't getting... mate, you're going there to get a treatment. And they give it to you real good. It's all about abuse. Churches are about abuse because it's like Big Pharma. They abuse good natural herbs that are already in place, and they get them and they twist them and torture them. Then they patent them, and then they go down to Brazil where they got them from, and they stop the indigenous people from from using the cures, because now it's a treatment. It's been upgraded. Well, that's what the churches are doing. You see, when the churches say to their people that they need to be good sheep, you know why, don't you? Yeah, they're going to fleece you, pull the wool over your eyes and lead you to the slaughter like a lamb. Christians are associated with fish, like I said before. Remember? The age of Pisces. Zeus turns up. You must love your friends. Why do you think they're associated with friends? This is the joke that's played on them, and they don't realise. They think, oh, I'm a good little fish, man. I've got my little fish sign, fish, fish. Well, Genesis. Check out Genesis. God says that he created the fish of the sea, the sea, the land, and the air. The animals of the land, and it calls them the creepy, crawly animals of the land, and the fowl or the birds of heaven. So you got heaven, land, and fish. These are the bottom feeders. Fish are like dumb, unconscious. That's what they're doing. They laugh at people that go to church, the elites that have made all the churches that exist. Everything that exists that is a church out there is a fiction. It's a construct made from someone's intellectual property. They make, the Jehovah's Witnesses tell you that God's name is Jehovah. You need to be careful in certain areas. In some churches you can't drink coffee, in some you can't have contraceptives. They've got all their own patented, franchised Jesus story. There's 30,000 of these people out there, registered Christian corporations. That's all they are. And they're treating people. There's no curates curing people and helping people to see who they are, that they are Jesus, that they are Christ. No, no, no. The same thing goes on with politics and law. You go to court, right? Hey, Mr. Judge, you think you're getting common law, you're getting law in the private, you're being looked after, the judge is going to do the right thing for you. Of course, he's a judge, right? And you're getting common law of the land, you're on the land? No. It's canon law. It's maritime law, remember? They bring you into their sea, into their boat, and they contract with you. And the first thing they want to know is your name. Why would they want to know your name? Well, because, all the N words, no, not, none, nobody, nowhere, nothing, none, no. That's what a name is. What does that look like to you? That's the Latin word for name. No men. In Spanish, the word for man is hombre, yeah? What's the word for name? Nombre. So when they say, the policeman in Spanish says, ¿Qué es tu nombre?" He wants to know what your no man is. Because they can't contract with a living. If they ask you your name and you say, "I'm Tom Smith," oh, good. So you've negated your divinity. You've negated. This is a negation. A name is a negation. It's one of these it's one of these N words. That's why they put it there. You are no man. They can't contract with a real man. You see, they've got their papers. And their papers are just paper, right? Last time I saw a summons, it was on paper. That's just a bit of paper. That's all it is. How do they give it life? Well, you've got to say, "Oh, that's me. And it says the 21st of March, the court date. Oh, I'd better go for this hearing then, eh?" So you rock up to court, and what are you doing? You're giving life to their curse. Because that's exactly what they're doing. They write their spells on these bits of paper. You see, the churches are doing it. Big Pharma's doing it. They're all doing it. The elites have got it wrapped around their little fingers. They've been doing this inversive subversion of what is good. They grab pre-existing good ideas, like Big Pharma goes down to Brazil and got great cures, and they go back to America, right, and patent them and turn them into treatments. And it's all about commerce. When you go to court, you're going there for commerce. Do you want to do commerce with the beast? It is a beast. The Roman Empire comes from the Grecian, which comes from the Medo-Persian, which comes from the Assyrian, comes from the Babylonian, comes from the Egyptian. And they've all been controlled by the same families. A bunch of pharaonic families from Egypt. And these bloodlines You see, back in the 18th dynasty of Egypt, they found that the Amun priesthood started getting very, very powerful, changing a lot of money. People were going there. The Temple of Solomon was there in Luxor. That's the Temple of Solomon. The sun, or Solomon, On is the sun, or Ammon. Okay, it's in Egypt. They suddenly discovered how much power they had, and they've been around ever since. These guys, when Egypt was destroyed, they managed to find their way to go to Babylon and all through Medo-Persia, and they came to Rome eventually. Now they are the cardinals of Rome and the Pope, and also the pharaonic bloodlines that have founded the neutral country of Switzerland. Switzerland, you know the Swiss Guard that look after the Vatican, the biggest fiction in the universe, the empire of evil, which in the next few months you will see how it falls. You're going to see Babylon fall. You know where the scriptures say she has fallen, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots. The harlots are all the corporations that do business with the Vatican, like the Bilderbergers, like the United States Corporation, like the Commonwealth of Australia, which is a corporation registered on the Securities Stock Exchange Commission in New York. They're all registered in New York, and that's because Rome runs that place. And Rome tells you. You see the American flag in Congress, you see the beautiful American flag there, the stars and stripes, and the stars and stripes, right? And they've got this golden frill around here, this trim. That's the maritime flag. It's not the flag of America, it's the maritime flag. It's martial law. Maritime, martial, Mars, and phallus. You know when the Jehovah's Witnesses go to the kingdom phallus? They go to the kingdom hall to worship. It's the phallus. There's the hall. What do you see next to, flanking the flag?
Fashions.
Yeah. Rome tells you, man, this is our corporation, and we put it in your face. The United States is Rome. It's all Rome.
What's their symbol? Eagle.
The eagle. The golden eagle.
It's the same thing the Romans had on their standards.
It's morphed from that. The golden calf that the Israelites worshipped. It's always been there. It's money. It's the fiction. If you want to do fiction, good luck to you. You've got birth certificates. They are securities, securitized bonds on the stock market. You're just a piece of stock as chattel on the stock market. And they own those birth certificates and the trusts, the 3 Vatican trusts that control the whole system, that steal your property, your souls. When you get a birth certificate, you've been baptised into the Catholic Church. It's the universal church. Switzerland. See you, sister.
Thank you.
In French, les sœurs d'Isis turned into Isis, the sisters of Isis. That's the Amun-Ra priesthood that have immunity in those hills, those clean, clean hills of Switzerland. Check out the Pharaoh show. It's one and a half hour video on YouTube. Check it out, and you'll see the guy's done his homework. The sisters of Isis, they have their immunity in that neutral state of Switzerland. In the year 1291, Switzerland was founded on the 1st of August, 2 months after Akon fell in the east to the Muslims. So the Templars, with their tails between their legs, they went back to Europe, didn't they? And remember this year, 1307? What about this year, 1302? That's when, I think you spell it like this, Unam Sanctam. I've spelt it wrongly, and people have, believe you me, people write to me and let me know when I do something wrong. You know, but I think that's right. It's either sanctum or a U there. Unum sanctum. It's the first. It's one of the papal bulls that was written on kid skin with blood, and it's a papal bull by Pope Boniface VIII. And in there, that's the famous one where he says, "Yeah, we're going to own everything." That's their claim of right. They've just gone, shit. There's a world and there's full of people and everything like that. We'll just write here with blood and we just say that we own the whole lot. Souls, lock, stock and barrel. And they stick it in their vaults, put a curse on it, and there you go. No one's challenged it. No one's challenged it. If we're all on an island, right, and we're stranded, and I say, right, I'm going to direct all you guys, okay, because I think I'm qualified. Or any one of you do it, right? Unless someone challenges and says, no, I think I'm equally qualified because of this and that. Unless anyone speaks up, well, he's going to be the leader, right? You've got to challenge that. No one's challenged the Vatican. They've just rocked up and said, well, we're the richest bastards around and everybody else is poor. Why don't we just own everything and claim it? And they've done it. And therefore they've compelled you to have a birth certificate which is theirs. It's theirs. That's why I'm teaching lose the name, win the game. What happened here was they founded this place, Switzerland, and 1307 was when they destroyed. Remember Jacques de Molay, in 7 years tortured, they burned his testicles, they burned his tongue, they burned out his eyes, they tortured him for 7 years, and then finally he died. And remember, he said, the King Philip will die by the end of the year, and so will the Pope. And Clement died, and King Philip died before the end of the year. Right? But this is when the papal bull happened. This is when they founded Switzerland, and this is when the Knights Templar disappeared, you see? Supposedly. Yeah. But they didn't. They didn't disappear. They're still there. They're in Switzerland. And they tell you, when you see the video, you'll get the picture. Yeah, that they discovered it and found it, and they called it America. America. Please take note that looks like mercenary, doesn't it? You know, remember the Swiss mercenaries? They just about butchered all of. They killed Germans. They killed the Swiss.
The Hessians.
Yeah. The Swiss mercenary, the mercenaries that went to a mercenary, America. This car. That's from Kabbalah, you know? Ka, it's the soul. Canada, Kansas, California, Colorado, America. This is an Egyptian word. Where the pyramid is, where the Great Pyramid is, there the souls will be born. In other words, we rule where this is. And they've always got this brass thing 2 feet off the ground. This brass, what do they call that, benchmark? Watermark. Yeah, why? Because the Vatican has done that. All around the world they've got these obelisks with that bench because they've filled the land with 2 feet of water. You're in their jurisdiction. They don't have to take you on the land. All they've got to do is, what's your name? You got a name? Yeah, my name's Santos Bonacci. Oh, great. Okay. Joinder. Thank you very much. It's our system. We run it. It's lose the name, win the game, or there's no other option, guys. And it's all about consciousness. If you're unconscious, well then you don't think like that. If you're conscious, of course you're going to lose the name. You're not a name. You're not your body.
How do you even know your name?
Yeah. Santo, I know. My grandfather was named. I was named after my grandfather. I was the firstborn, therefore I get my grandfather's name. That's how it works in the Calabrian Italian families. So he was called Santo. His grandfather was called... There's a million Santos in the world. It's not my name. It's a borrowed name. So is Elizabeth and Tony and Bob and Bruce. How many of them are there? You see? We are I am. That's why when God said to Moses in the burning bush, who are you? Who shall I say to Pharaoh that's sending me? I am. There's no more powerful word than I am. And it comes from Aum. Amun. In Jesus' name, Amun. You know? Let me get through this, guys. Sorry. And then we're out.
Question?
Yep.
You got the precession of the equinoxes, you got the 24,000 to 26,000 cycle that you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Now, I'm just picturing a DNA molecule. Now, there's one cycle within another cycle within a bigger cycle and a bigger cycle. Is there a greater year in which the great year is only a day or a moment?
Yes, good point. There's a thing called the polar year, okay? And you learn that again from Thomas Burgoyne. If you want to know everything, it's in here. Everything, it's in here. This is the book, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And there's also a chapter here called The Dark Satellite. That's the origin of all the evil. It's the animal chakra of the earth. It's worth a read. It's only 10 pages, The Dark Satellite. If you want to know why there's all this evil that I spoke about before, that's where it's coming from. But the great polar year, now, this is a big truth that I'm going to share with you today, but the figure that you mentioned there for precession was 25,920 years, right? I've been using a flat 24,000 years because when corrected it is 24,000 years because it's based on binary. Oh, well, let's not talk about the binary, I've covered that. And but precession is not constant. It's not fixed at, I believe it's 1 degree every 72 years. So the stars drop back 1 degree every 72 years, which is the average lifespan of a human being. Okay? And so, but that's changing. It's now getting closer to 70. It's shortening because precession is speeding up. It's never constant, you see. So this is the outer, and this is basically what it resolves down to. It's 24,000 years. But let's stick with this number, right? 100 of these make 2,590,000. 100 of these cycles of precession make one polar year, in which the pole of the Earth, which is at 23.5 degrees, will migrate, will go right the way around back to this point. Takes 2,592,000 years. 100 of these. That's the polar year. And that's one day of creation in Genesis. You know when it says, and there was evening, first it says evening and then there was light, because the first part of this polar year is a dark part and the second part is a light part. And this is why scientists tell you about an ice age, and you know how those mammoths were snap frozen and all those animals in those caves that were snap frozen, and then you see deserts and then you see polar caps and everything like that. But they know when they go in the substrata, when they go down, they realise, hey, hang on a minute, 100,000 years ago, or you know, a million years ago, there was vegetation here. That's because of this. This is what's going on. The axis of the Earth doesn't stay at 23.5 degrees. It's straightening up. It goes round, and it does these little circles. Because what happens is, there's a wobble, they call it a wobble, but it's not a wobble, and that's what they reckon causes precession. You see, now the axis of the Earth is pointing to Polaris, but before that it was Deneb, and there's Vigo, there's 7 stars that they reckon. But what it is it does all these spirals, 100 of them, and all those are precession. This is one cycle of, you get 100, and then the pole has migrated around. And only occult scientists will teach you that. You won't get any of these buffoons that have got their fathead disease, their PhDs come out of Rome's universities. They go, they talk about a Milankovitch cycle which lasts 42,000 years, and they say that this axis sort of oscillates between 24.5 degrees and 22.5 degrees. This is because Rome is educating them, and they've got opinions that are wrong, and they repeat them, and they're buffoons, because they're not coming to the light and consciousness. They'd rather be educated like those scientists that go into the laboratory and persecute monkeys and rodents and animals with souls, living beings, and they torture them with all sorts of chemicals, and they call themselves scientists. They're barbarians. Everyone who comes out of Rome's system has been educated. And there've been a lot of their consciousness has been stolen from them. That's what they do. They rape you. They rape you spiritually, emotionally and physically. Why do the priests have so much problems with pedophilia? They're not just raping little boys and sodomising them physically. They're doing it emotionally and spiritually too. They destroy their spirits. So they fragment them, shatter them and traumatise them, because a shattered spirit finds finds it difficult to remember and bring itself in harmony and get all of this, you know, in order for ascension. They struggle. Many people are suffering because of all of the trauma of the churches. The churches are there, like Big Pharma, to treat you, not to cure you. All right. Yeah, that they discovered it and found it, and they called it America. America. Please take note that that looks like mercenary, doesn't it? You know, remember the Swiss mercenaries? They just about butchered all of. They killed Germans. They killed the Swiss.
The Hessians.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Swiss mercenary, the mercenaries that went to a mercenary, America. This car, that's from Kabbalah, you know. Ka, it's the soul. Canada, Kansas, California, Colorado, America. This is an Egyptian word. Where the pyramid is, where the Great Pyramid is, there the souls will be born. In other words, we rule where this is. And they've always got this brass thing 2 feet off the ground. This brass, what do they call that, benchmark? Watermark. Yeah, why? Because the Vatican has done that. All around the world they've got these obelisks with that bench because they've filled the land with 2 feet of water. You're in their jurisdiction. They don't have to take you on the land. All they've got to do is, what's your name? You got a name? Yeah, my name's Santos Bonacci. Oh, great. Okay. Joinder. Thank you very much. It's our system. We run it. It's lose the name, win the game, or there's no other option, guys. And it's all about consciousness. If you're unconscious, well then you don't think like that. If you're conscious, of course you're going to lose the name. You're not a name. You're not your body.
How do you even know your name?
Yeah. Santo, I know. My grandfather was named. I was named after my grandfather. I was the firstborn, therefore I get my grandfather's name. That's how it works in the Calabrian Italian families. So he was called Santo. His grandfather was. There's a million Santos in the world. It's not my name. It's a borrowed name. So is Elizabeth and Tony and Bob and Bruce. How many of them are there? You see? We are I am. That's why when God said to Moses in the burning bush, who are you? Who shall I say to Pharaoh that's sending me? I am. There's no more powerful word than I am. And it comes from Aum. Amun. In Jesus' name, Amun. You know? Let me get through this, guys. Sorry. And then we're out. Yep.
You got the precession of the equinoxes. You got the 24,000 to 26,000 cycle that you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Now, I'm just picturing a DNA molecule. Now, there's one cycle within another cycle within a bigger cycle and a bigger cycle. Is there a greater year in which the great year is only a day or a moment?
Yes. Good point. There's a thing called the polar year, okay? And you learn that again from Thomas Burgoyne. If you want to know everything, it's in here. Everything, it's in here. This is the book, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And there's also a chapter here called The Dark Satellite. That's the origin of all the evil. It's the animal chakra of the earth. It's worth a read. It's only 10 pages, The Dark Satellite. If you want to know why there's all this evil that I spoke about before, that's where it's coming from. But the great polar year, now, this is a big truth that I'm going to share with you today, but the figure that you mentioned there for precession was 25,920 years, right? I've been using a flat 24,000 years because when corrected it is 24,000 years because it's based on binary. Oh, well, let's not talk about the binary. I've covered that. But precession is not constant. It's not fixed at, I believe it's 1 degree every 72 years. So the stars drop back 1 degree every 72 years, which is the average lifespan of a human being. Okay? And so, but that's changing. It's now getting closer to 70. It's shortening because precession is speeding up. It's never constant, you see. So this is the outer, and this is basically what it resolves down to. It's 24,000 years. But let's stick with this number, right? 100 of these make 2,590,000. 100 of these cycles of precession make one polar year, in which the pole of the Earth which is at 23.5 degrees, will migrate, will go right the way around back to this point. Takes 2,592 years. 100 of these. That's the polar year. And that's one day of creation in Genesis. You know when it says, and there was evening, first it says evening and then there was light, because the first part of this polar year is a dark part and the second part is a light part. And this is why scientists tell you about an ice age, and you know how those mammoths were snap frozen and all those animals in those caves that were snap frozen, and then you see deserts and then you see polar caps and everything like that. But they know when they go in the substrata, when they go down, they realise, hey, hang on, man, 100,000 years ago, or you know, a million years ago, there was vegetation here. That's because of this. This is what's going on. The axis of the Earth doesn't stay at 23.5 degrees. It's straightening up. It goes round, and it does these little circles. Because what happens is, there's a wobble, they call it a wobble, but it's not a wobble, and that's what they reckon causes precession. You see, now the axis of the Earth is pointing to Polaris, but before that it was Deneb, and there's Vega, there's 7 stars that they reckon. But what it is it does all these spirals, 100 of them, and all those are precession. This is one cycle of, you get 100, and then the pole has migrated around. And only occult scientists will teach you that. You won't get any of these buffoons that have got their fathead disease, their PhDs come out of Rome's universities. They go, they talk about a Milankovitch cycle which lasts 42,000 years, and they say that this axis sort of oscillates between 24.5 degrees and 22.5 degrees. This is because Rome is educating them, and they've got opinions that are wrong, and they repeat them, and they're buffoons, because they're not coming to the light and consciousness. They'd rather be educated like those scientists that go into the laboratory and persecute monkeys and rodents and animals with souls, living beings, and they torture them with all sorts of chemicals, and they call themselves scientists. They're barbarians. Everyone who comes out of Rome's system has been educated. And they've been, a lot of their consciousness has been stolen from them. That's what they do. They rape you. They rape you spiritually, emotionally and physically. Why do the priests have so much problems with pedophilia? They're not just raping little boys and sodomizing them physically. They're doing it emotionally and spiritually too. They destroy their spirits. So they fragment them, shatter them and traumatize them, because a shattered spirit finds it difficult to remember and bring itself in harmony and get all of this, you know, in order for ascension. They struggle. Many people are suffering because of all of the trauma of the churches. The churches are there, like Big Pharma, to treat you, not to cure you.